Hi, I'm David Penn, Research Analyst with Finovate. We're here at FinovateEurope 2023 at London, England. Joining me today is Simon Boonen. He is the Fintech Partnership Lead with ING. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure for being here, David.
Fantastic. So maybe to start us off with, you could tell us just a little bit about yourself and the work you do with ING.
Absolutely. So I'm a Fintech lead and Fintech consultant at ING. I'm part of the group strategy and innovation function at ING, so central. And my job is really all about connecting ING to the ecosystem of fintech, startups and scale-ups, to see how we can mutually benefit and get to also the benefits, especially for our customers.
Interesting. We hear a lot of talk about partnerships in fintech and in financial services, and I'm curious, for those companies that don't have a person like you who's dedicated to making sure those partnerships work for both parties, what are those companies missing out?
I think the key challenge that we see in making partnerships work is really it's a multidisciplinary approach across the company. So having someone dedicated working on partnerships help to supersede, if you will, the cubicles or the silos in the organization, to connect all the different people across different units. It's business, it's tech, but it's also supporting functions like compliance, regulatory, legal, procurement, and what have you. So bringing all those people together and working with a fintech, which is still a special kind of an animal, if you will, requires this kind of dedicated focus and attention and also understanding of how they work, right? So if you look at procurement, they know very well how to do their job, also know how to work with established companies. Working with a smaller company or a quickly scaling company is a bit different to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm curious about your thoughts on some of the competitors, quite frankly, to the partnerships that take place between financial services and fintechs, the big techs, for example. How is your view toward them? Are they companies that you see as an enemy? Are they companies you see as potential friends? How do you sort of square that circle with them?
I believe there is something that I would like to call Coopetition happening here, right? So in some areas you might be collaborating together and in some areas you might be competing. And we've definitely seen big techs stepping into the financial area, if you will, to provide services. In some occasions it's almost directly, but in many occasions they're also really looking for partners. And to take that as an example, we are also working with big tech ourselves. So we have a partnership together with Amazon in Germany, where we are providing loans to merchants on the Amazon platform. So it's ING technology combined with the strength of the Amazon platform that is really indeed bringing benefits for both parties, as well as obviously then also for the merchants, the customers on that platform.
Yeah, that's really insightful. I like that phrase that you use because I think it really captures the complexity of what's involved, that it's not simply a matter of being black or white, that the actual dynamism of what's going on requires that sometimes you're working across purposes, but sometimes you're working lockstep together.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious in terms of some of the either fintechs or the technologies that you yourself, either throughout the partnerships or just in terms of the work that you've seen, what are some of the things that have sort of captured your imagination as things you really are looking forward to seeing sort of furthered in financial services?
Yeah. So in our current setup, and we've just redefined a strategy, we see three key areas in which we want to really focus. First and foremost, that's all on digital assets. That's something that's already been long in the making, and we've already invested and learned a lot about it in the past years, and we continue to do so. So really trying to build stepping stones indeed to accelerate and advance in that area. Then second, we see a lot of movement in the area of open finance, and that is for part, it's a regulatory thing, building upon PSD2 and open banking, if you will, towards PSD3 perhaps, and or open finance. But there is also the concepts of embedded finance and open and banking as a service emerging throughout the industry, which are super interesting to keep an eye out on. And then lastly, we see emerging technology coming from all sides. And I think generative AI has been all the hype already since a number of months since ChatGPT was launched.
Right.
So also that is something we have a look at with a very interested eye. That's not to say we will be working directly with it, but it's taking the nuanced view. We see a lot of promise and potential, but we also need to understand the technology and make sure indeed that it's being applied for the right kind of use cases in the right kind of context to not run any unnecessary risk.
Right, absolutely. It's one of the things you've mentioned a couple of times, the idea of the risks, the idea of regulation and compliance. And I think that's one thing that maybe is not often appreciated, that yes, partnerships are necessary, but often you're getting partnerships with entities that are from different worlds in a sense. And the idea of, okay, once those worlds come together, the rules of engagement are a little bit different, and they have to sort of be clear so that both sides understand that what might work in one world maybe not be appropriate in the other, and vice versa.
No, you're fully right on that, David. So it's really about bridging those gaps, right? So as a financial institution, our license to operate depends on indeed everything we've got in place also in terms of security and controls, and that is what keeps our regulators happy. That's what gives us the trust from our customers, and that is what we need to keep in place anyhow. Looking into the ecosystem of mainly fintechs, we see it's many smaller parties, scaling parties, building technology from scratch, super innovative ideas, and we love to learn from them about how agile they work, what kind of innovative propositions they come up with. But in the end, to work with them, we also need to ensure indeed it works to our standards, right? So it's finding the way of how can we do that, and that means you need to have an open conversation with each other.
Right.
We need leadership commitments to really make it happen, because otherwise it won't. But it's also about the culture, right? So you need to have that kind of open, transparent conversation. You need to have the expectations set rightfully to make it happen, and also to build that kind of mutual understanding. Understand where you're both coming from, and then find a journey and path forward.
Yeah, that's really well said. There's such an imperative put upon financial services organizations, fintech, that you must partner. And I almost wonder sometimes if some of those who are making these correct claims appreciate some of the difficulty, some of the complexity that's involved to actually make those things work for both parties as well.
Yeah. No, and it is, right? So as said in the beginning already, it's really about breaking through the boundaries of the internal organization, bringing people together from different backgrounds and disciplines, and it's taking them along on that journey. So that is the effort on the inside. And what we typically see is, as long as we can connect it to a business challenge, a business problem, or a business opportunity that's got the priority from senior management, the odds are that we might well get there. Right. If indeed a partnership turns out to be the most prevalent way, right? So in the end, it should be a means towards an end, right, i.e. solving that kind of a challenge or pursuing that opportunity that ideally gives the benefit to our customers.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm curious, what are some of the big trends? You mentioned obvious digital assets, you mentioned embedded finance, which is huge, generative AI. What are some of the big trends that are most fascinating to you right now in technology and fintech?
Yeah, well, beyond all what we're seeing here, right, and I think that also neatly connects to our updated strategy at ING. We've last year given an update, so it's all about making the difference, and we try to do that by ensuring that we give our customers a superior experience, and that we put sustainability at the heart of everything we do. And I think in those both areas we see a lot of movement. So we see the need for personalized services also, and maybe even especially in this digital age. And next to that, we also have to look and think we cannot walk around sustainability. And with sustainability, it's not just the environmental part, but it's really also about the social part and the governance part. So I believe in the end that goes hand in hand. And in the last year, with rising inflation, increasing cost of living pressures, we've seen that especially also the emphasis should not exclusively be on the environmental part, but really also on that social part, helping people make their ends meet and see how they can also advance in life.
That's a really interesting point. I think that a lot of times with the sort of the ESG, there's been a lot. I know we saw some of the demos on yesterday here at Finovate, really doing an excellent job on all three fronts, really, but really sort of being very heavy on the E of the ESG. And it's really interesting to hear you talk about, as important as that is, you don't want to forget that social component as well.
In the end, I believe it's dual, right? And it's in collaboration with one another in a way. So for the E part, I think we want to try and leave the planet better than we found it, right? So, but at the same time, we cannot do that if we leave people behind. So we shouldn't leave anyone behind, because the only way of doing this is together. Absolutely. So also that collaborative spirit, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's a fantastic point to end on. Very interesting talking with you and finding out a lot of the things that ING is doing, finding out some of the things that you were emphasizing in terms of partnerships. I really appreciated the points you made about both the leadership buy-in and the cultural buy-in, because often that's you're getting two parties from these different worlds, getting them to work together. It's a lot of work, and it's really interesting to find a person who's engaged in that, making it happen. So very fascinating talking to you today.
Thank you so much, David. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, and thank you as well.